Hello and welcome to Tamanon's TCGs. I'm Tamanon.
Oh, hello, selectors. I guess I'm here on Tamanon's channel for now. He's on my channel, and you can check out the cool mono-white aggro deck list if you want there. But while we wait for him to come back to this channel, I have a pretty cool mid-range deck for you guys to check out. And we'll jump right into it, and then afterwards we'll talk a little bit about the many colors of Tama, just a casual, cool conversation between two dorks, if you guys want to join in on that kind of conversation. But let's get right into Tama. So Tama is kind of cool. It really lends itself to aggro, but it also lends itself to mid-range. And this deck list sort of takes what works of Nova and what works of Lion and sort of pushes them together in a hybrid. I actually really think this deck is very unique, and I think it actually does the job very well. Might even be the best mid-range, at least white or red mid-range deck you could be playing right now. I think it gets a lot of tools in the next set. So if you want to get a jump on a very cool deck list prior to it getting like a super upgrade and then definitely being probably tier 1 after that, I would jump on this right now. So the reason why I say it's kind of like Nova, it's kind of like Lion, is it takes sort of the best parts of it and it puts it together. The abilities of Tama allows you to, on the enter, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, add up 2 of them to your hand, and put the rest on the bottom in any order, which just gives you some filtering, and also really helps. It helps sort of negate a lot of this discard meta that's going around, because there is quite a bit of discard. Plus, filtering to get yourself your combo ending is really good, so you might want to consider running that kind of thing. Like it's going to just help you get to your Komai, and we'll talk about the Komai combo at the end. It has an once a game action, which is that this Elrig gains auto once a turn when this Elrig attacks up all Signy on your field until end of turn, which ties nicely in with its Elrig once per turn ability, auto also, that says when this Elrig attacks, you may down 2 up Signy and pay white and a colorless. If you do, you may up this Elrig and it loses all abilities till end of turn. So this allows you to attack twice in a turn, sort of the Komai ability. You pay 2 enter, and you can down 2 things, and you'll be able to attack. The cool thing is, you can actually attack with all 3 of your Elrig, or all 3 of your Signies. Then, when this attacks, up your Signies, and then do the effect, so you can get in potentially 5 damage in 1 turn, which is quite cool. What this deck does differently than the aggro deck does, it has a little bit more late game ability, it has a little bit more mid-range sort of jockeying for board position, and it's got kind of better Elrigs. Now, the first one we should talk about is Bang to Capo. We want to run a green Elrig to work with Komai, and Bang is the best one that we can do right now. In set 7, we're going to replace it with Mel, and that will be an upgrade, right? But for now, you're going to be able to enter charge 2, which is good because this costs a fair amount of enter, and it is true that this does 2 and this does 2, so that's kind of where you want to be at, followed with Bang to Capo, which is just still a very good rate for preventing damage. So you want to use it together with that. The other one that I'm running is Hanyo. So this is Hanyo, the level 1 that is from the, not from the, both of these are not from the starter deck, they're from the set itself. But this Hanyo is actually really, really good. It's going to be a sleeper because it's kind of a workhorse and no one's really talking about it. And that is, it has an enter ability of vanish target Signy on your opponent's field to power 5,000 or less. It's almost always going to have a pretty good target for that early on, and then it also gives you enter charge 1. So I'm a huge fan of level 1s that can open a lane and do something else, right? Machina has shown us that that is a real sweet spot for a level 1s, and this does this. Now, the enter charge 1 is not huge, but it isn't nothing. It's actually quite good in a deck that is a little enter hungry, like this deck is. The Hanyo over here is just, it's just 1 enter, and then you basically vanish something on the opponent's field. We've already learned that that's pretty good with Hirana Stomp. It's the bare minimum that we're looking for. It's got another enter effect, which allows you to discard 4 cards from your hand, and then you can target 1 card on your opponent's field with power 8,000 or less and banish it. You're probably never going to be doing that, but unlike Hirana Stomp, which just you plainly never do it, this one might happen maybe 1 out of every 20 games. So you still might do it at some point. Realistically, 1 enter to do it a cheap vanish. To round out our Elrig deck, we're going to be running one Burning Curiosity. The deck lacks just a little bit of push and needs a little bit more. I think the Burning Curiosity sort of fills that gap really nicely. You could probably do something else with it. You could do, for example, Entwined Supremacy is another one, but this Tama deck fears MGD a little bit, Machina Guardian Dragon, already, so I wouldn't necessarily put more Machina Guardian Dragon bait in there. It doesn't stop it for sure, but it's like, meh, you're giving them really a juicy target to use the Machina Guardian Dragon. And then the Xenocluster here is it's just more chances to refresh your hand. Again, there's just so much enter burn and so much discard happening in this meta. This is this perfect card to just pair this with, especially since you're mid-range deck and you're trying to go a little bit longer. So let's talk about the rest of the main deck, and we'll talk about the combo in just a heartbeat. So what you'll notice is when you look at this, just from sort of like a big picture perspective, it's mostly the same as white aggro. It plays a little bit of these difficult to deal with Signy, which is these Zhaoyuns, the Toyokis, and the Typos, right? These are all just difficult to deal with Signy. And the cool thing with Typo is you can run Typo and you can also enter charge off of both the Hanyo and the Bang. And your chances of getting this on turn 1, a 7,000, is ridiculously high. So this is sort of like just really, it's a level 1 walls. And that's going to help you get a little bit longer into the mid-range, right? This is something that Nova did very, very well, and we're leaning towards that Nova. We've got the early game Nova, but not the late game Nova. We've got a Lion-esque late game. So that's basically our level 1 slots. But going into our level 2 slots is where we start changing things, right? We've got Lancelot. Now, I actually purposely put red in here to get access to Lancelot. This deck is a more aggressive mid-range, and I need a little bit more damage push. So between the two Elrigs that we get that are lane openers and Lancelot and a couple other things, this kind of just helps you get there. Now Lancelot is also kind of cool because again, you need 2 Signy in order to make your Tama be able to up itself and then go attack again, right? That means that one of your Signys is free to attack itself. This is where Lancelot really kind of shines, right? Lancelot will open up a lane for you, and you will be able to do that. That's why we kind of have a lot of these, like, it kills one thing, kills one thing, kills one thing, kills one thing, because we don't necessarily need lanes 2 and 3 open. It's not to say that you shouldn't do them, I'm just saying we don't necessarily need it. Rounding out our level 2s here, we've got Akufuku. We need more green, and Akufuku is a great way to do it. If you wanted to replace this with the one that allows you to draw 3 cards as its Lifeburst, because you've got so much discard in your meta, that's a valid option. Personally, I think I'd rather have a little bit more defense in my Elrig, or in my Lifeburst slot, so I want to use that. And then Aya over here, just to round out the level 2 slot. It just lets us kind of loop Komais if we need to, and that's something that I find pretty attractive. Moving into our level 3 slot, we've got Komais. We'll get back to Komais. You might be thinking, why is it there when that's a Nobo with the fact that it also has the same Komai ability? There's a combo for it. Our other level 3s are going to be some of this Cola. I'm definitely not pronouncing that right. It's a very good card that basically is new and says, we basically draw a card, right? We're gonna be, especially mid-range decks where we're sort of like putting up walls and then punching in for 1 damage or 2 damage. We really stay at parity with the opponent, so you do actually draw a card pretty often with this. Not to mention, you've got the enter ability of it draws a card just by entering and paying white. We like the Lifeburst ability. It trashes things. That's kind of cool in a mid-range deck. But the real kicker is being able to turn off an opponent's ability on the opponent's turn. That can really help save you some games. It can lower down attacks into a part where you're more manageable. It allows you to, for example, turn a 13k in some cases down to a 12k so that your Hanyo can cleanly get rid of it. Things like that. It can turn off Souls, which is another good reason to use it. So overall, just a pretty good thing to fill out the lanes with, as well as Exia. Now, the only reason we're only running 2 Exia instead of 4 is because We are also running a lot of remembers, and there's sort of a Nobo with that. Again, we are a little more aggressive than we are defensive in our top range option, although 15k is plenty defensive with your remembers here. So I don't need to go into why remember's good. You guys have heard it several times on my channel so far before, so it's a great card. Then we've got ourselves Servant, rounding out our Signies. And I put 2 Eternal Influence in there. We've got enough red with our 4 Lancelot to basically ensure that we'll always hit 1 Eternal Influence enter if we need to. So it's kind of there just to fill out things. You could swap this to something else if you felt like you didn't need the lane opening. But personally, felt it like needed just a little bit more Lancelots. And this sort of does a job of being a Lancelot. And that's the deck package itself. Now, let's talk about that combo. So Komai has the ability of when your white Elrig attacks, remember you got a Harmony green here, when your white Elrig attacks, you can pay 2. If you do, you can up the Elrig and it loses all abilities until end of turn. Cool. So there is a combo that you can pull off with Tama, and this will basically allow you to attack 3 times. The thing that you're going to want to notice is Komai's ability is not once per turn. It's an auto, which means if you got a second attack in with your Elrig and you had the up Signy to pay for it, you can go ahead and re-trigger your Komai and you'll be able to do it. So the trick with this is that you're going to want to use your once per game, go attack with one thing, whatever you want for it, in maybe an open lane. Leave yourself 2 Signies to down. You will be able to then go into attack phase, attack with your 1 Signy, then attack with your Elrig. That's going to trigger once per game ability. That allows you to up your Elrigs. Your Signy. Throw that ability into the bucket. Then you're going to want to use the once per turn ability from your Tama, which allows you to down your 2 Signy, and then you can up your Tama and it loses all of its abilities. Cool, it's now a vanilla thing, but that once per game ability is in the bucket still. So then you take it out of the bucket and you take your Signy and up them. After you have your Signy up, you attack with your Elrig a second time. This is going to trigger Komai. The first attack is also going to trigger Komai, but you're going to ignore it. The second attack will trigger it a second time. This time, you go ahead and say, I'm going to use Komai's ability, down my 2 Elrigs, pay 2 enter, and then up my Tama again. This is going to allow me to attack a 3rd time this turn. It's sort of one of those sneaky things that you can do to really get yourself in a crap ton of attacks. Not this set, but the next set. So set 7 is going to have a new Signy called Picture Frame. And this is going to allow you to do what Komai does, but basically a little cheaper. So it's going to combo with Komai. It's going to allow you to do multiple attacks with your Elrig several turns in a row. So that's something to look forward in the future. We're not quite there yet, but Komai still has use case scenarios here. Komai probably could go down in the amount yet. This is sort of prepping for set 7. But it could probably go down to a 3 of, and you could fill that 1 slot with something else. Maybe another Seola could be a good job there, something like that. But you could also do something in red, something in green if you prefer. Personally, I'm just going to run 4 Komais just because that's the whole point of this deck, is to try to go explosive. You're going to need Enter to do so. That's something that the Xeno Cluster is going to help out, and that also the Bang de Capo is going to help you out with, as well as the Hanyo Sakura. That's the deck in a nutshell. Let's see. Tama-non, are you there?
What are you doing on my channel still?
I was just waiting for you to finish up. How did it go?
Well, Tiffany ran me out after I said Tama was better than Umar.
Yeah, that's a classic mistake. She does love ancient surprise lore.
It might come as a surprise, but Tama has a whole ancient anime.
I always wondered about the Tama-color shifting. It's kind of only briefly covered in the anime. Do you want a lore dump on me?
Talking about Tama? Of course. But be warned, I will say spoilers to an 8-year-old anime and movie, and possibly the manga too.
Alright, let's do this. In the anime, right, Tama went like Black Tama, Dark Tama at one point, and that's what we're seeing right now with the Tama Doomed Angels Signy Memorias that we're getting. Do you have more deets about just the Tama shifting in general?
Of course, and again, this will be kind of a mild spoiler if you have not seen the anime, and if you haven't, I definitely recommend watching it. It's written by Mari Okada, who did Anohana, Another Flower We Saw That Day, Iron Blood Orphans. She worked on Black Rock Shooter, Makia. Everything she's written has been amazing. She also wrote the mangas, which a lot of people don't know. Different people drew it, obviously, but she wrote them. And then the anime was also directed by the Steins Gate director, Sato, so it has a great like overall horror feeling to it. And that kind of plays into why she turns into the Dark Tama, which ended up kind of also being, I think, a spoiler to the Japanese player base, which is pretty funny. So Tama originally in Selector Infected Wixoss is white, right? And her name is actually Shiro originally before she meets her Selector, which means white in Japanese. Ruko actually named her after her cat because Tama made a noise that sounded like her cat before she relearned how to speak in the anime.
That's pretty funny.
So Tama, nya, and then you see Tama drawn as like little with cat ears and stuff quite a bit in like Japanese fan art and whatnot. At the end of Infected, Tama refuses to complete the Eternal Girl contract with Ruko, and Iona and Ulith, who are competing with her, complete their Eternal Girl contract. And this leads into Selector Spread Wecross, which is the second part of the core.
Mm-hmm.
This ends with Iona, who is actually an Elrig, originally named Kuro Black, as Ruko's Elrig, which they don't have a Kuro version of her, I don't think. But Ulith ends up taking over Iona's body and is abusing Tama as her own Elrig. So this is kind of how we get the Black Tama, because the whole show is about weird body swapping and pretty much really trauma-dumped middle schoolers, I guess. And the Black Tama is... Ulith forces Tama to grow into a level 5. And it's kind of a big reveal because up till that point, even in the card game in real life, you could only grow up to level 4.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a spoiler for the card game, like, hey, we're getting level 5s now. But in the show, it with Ulith like basically possessing Tama and forcing her to embrace that darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Ruko hates this and she wants to save Tama. And when Ulith forces her to grow, it kind of foreshadows what happens to Kuro or Yuki, which is what Ruko ends up naming Kuro later, or Iona. There's a lot of different names when you're body swapping, right?
Yeah, this just happens, you sort of pick up names as you go along. You're like, yeah, I guess this is me today.
Yeah, and it is pretty interesting. Like Ruko ends up naming both or renaming both Tama and Yuki. But it kind of shows at the end and spoils a little bit, or not spoils, foreshadows, I guess, what ends up happening to Tama and Iona and who they really are in relation to the Selector games. And because they were created originally by Mayu, who is sitting in the White Room, and that's, Mayu, darn it, kind of thing. But yeah. As far as like her other colors, because she does have a red version that comes out, that came out in Japan, and we are going to be getting that, I think, in the 8th set.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because like red just kind of feels like a natural extension of Tama. Like I get that there's Black Tama and that's cool, and people are a little shocked by it in the anime, right? How could Tama go dark like that? But Red Tama feels like kind of fitting. Tama's all about fighting anyways, and when like she's fighting oh god, what's that one Elrig name, the one that's like got the berserk ability,
Lila.
Yeah, Layla.
And
when she's fighting her, like it's just like they're both having a grand old time beating the shit out of each other, right? So it feels like Tama's pretty red there as well.
I mean, her whole tagline is Bataru,
Yeah.
which I think it's amazing. Whoever designed the English poster actually put the word Bataru on there. I'm like, well, somebody knows the memes, The red one is I think was just for the card game. I'm not really sure what relation it had to anything, but I do love that art. Actually, the only question mark Tama I currently own is the red sleeper. It just fits,
Yeah.
Her doing the little finger guns is hilarious to me. It's very on point. And we do also eventually get the blue version, which Japan had a whole blue version line, which is like a baseball version I'm assuming they made her blue just because her baseball outfit was blue, which is based on a very short 1 minute quote unquote OVA called Schhol Wars, which
Yeah,
many thought like was going to be a trailer for a new one, and then they announced Diva, and I was like, well, you know,
I kind of would be okay with Schhol Wars though. Like I did, guys. If you haven't seen the trailer for Schhol Wars, it's a little difficult to find on YouTube. But when you find it, it's nuts. Like it is really well animated, and it's like wacky as hell. And I guess like, and the reason I know it is because of when we were looking into Umir and Ancient Surprise, Towel, we didn't know they had their own, music club band, and that's sort of
yes,
was key to it. But yeah, no, the Tama baseball version's really funny. When I think of like blue, and this is just my Magic the background, just showing here. When I think of blue, I'm always thinking of like, oh, wizards and illusions and ice magic, and Tama's just like, I got a baseball bat.
yeah, it really seems a little different coming. I also play Magic a lot, so I was like, yeah, she's a spellcaster where it's like instead of throwing ice, it's just like I'm just gonna hit you with the baseball bat, and that's a spell, right?
Yeah, and not only that, she's like there's all this like moon stuff in her like kind of like in her nameage and everything, and like
New Moon Miko
feels
and all
like
that.
yeah, it feels like a moon. You could go blue with moon, blue moon. And they were like, no,
Baseball.
baseball.
And what's funny is there were tarot cards made of all the Lyrigs back in the day, and she's the sun. So it's like,
Wait,
just
really?
whatever. Yeah, she's the sun.
Oh, that's pretty good. I mean, I guess that's like I don't know. There's a bunch of red Elrigs that could have been the sun, but sure, whatever. So yeah, so we've got a red version, right? We've got a blue version. The red version doesn't really have a ton of lore behind it. It's just
It's just
Tama
cool.
red, which is again, I'm okay to write that off because I feel like Tama feels pretty red anyways. I do actually. That is one thing when we're talking about the color pie. It's one thing I always liked about Tama was she was very battle centric, and white, generally speaking, in these card games tend to be pretty battle eccentric, but they sort of hide that battle eccentric under this veneer of like, oh, doing it for good or doing it for just purposes. But they are pretty battle eccentric in most of these card games. So I liked that Wecross really leaned into her being like, no, she's a battle nut. She really likes fighting. Yes, she's a white Elrig, but white Elrigs in this game tend to like fighting as well.
Yeah, I did like, even in the anime, you could have said that maybe she was read with how, I want to battle, let's battle Ruko, kind of thing. Bataroo, do the, the street Bataroo. But it's kind of funny that she is the white one, because typically, in Magic or anything, white, again, is angels. I mean, you get that in Wecross, but it's not something that's supposed to be teaching you, like, go and kill things. But I guess it's more like, in D&D, it's kind of like a cleric or something, it's like, how dare you and just kill whatever that your god tells you to kill, kind of thing.
Right, and even in D&D, right, like the cleric thing, like those clerics, I don't know if you've ever played the D&D clerics, they hit like a truck. Like they're like
tanks.
yeah, they might be healing for a while, but sometimes they'll come over with a warhammer and just smite you down. You're like, oh, no,
It definitely feels like that.
that thing getting hit pretty hard too.
It's oh, I was gonna mention real quick, if you want to watch the Schhol Wars OVA, I actually have it in one of my channel links, or I don't know enough about YouTube honestly to say it, but the I have a bunch of different playlists, and one's called Wixoss Interesting, and it has the Schhol Wars on it.
I'm gonna
So
have
it's
to.
kind of an easier way to find it.
I'm gonna have to look at that too. I just because I coming from like I don't speak Japanese and I'm coming into the game later than some of our old school guys who've been in the game for a long time or have been watching the anime for a long time. I really only watched the anime like last year, right? Tiffany and we talked about how we got into it, and basically
I berated you for watching Diva first.
well, I guess that was the right order, right? Because we watched Diva and we were like, this is pretty good, and then we watched the other stuff and we were like, oh, this is really good.
I have to ask, did you watch the movie yet?
There's a movie and there's a random like Elrig Signy thing that exists in it, right? That just came out in this new set.
Yeah, Hayanyo. I'm probably pronouncing that terribly, but the movie is very much about like kind of Ulith's backstory, which
No,
is pretty
I'll have to watch it.
Yeah, Destructed. Good luck finding it.
Yeah, right. It's one of those ones where you have to navigate a little bit of the Tama black web for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
gotta go to level 5 first.
right. But it's yeah. So the red makes sense. The blue weird because she's just a baseball. But does she have a green? That's a real question. I've never seen her with any green stuff.
So I know there was a level 4 in like the first like 10 sets, I want to say. I don't quite remember. It must have been earlier because there's a poster of the art for it that was like green, red, white, I think, with like ability or grow cost, and it's got like some art with like roses on fire. It has a really cool clear poster. But I don't think that she has had any that are just complete green.
Like
Like that's the
singular.
one color. Yeah.
Interesting. Huh.
You know, you can't have green get anything good anymore, right? So
No. And what's weird too is like that's the one color that I was like when I'm building the Tama mid-range deck, I was like, that's the one color I want to make sure I sneak in there. It's easier to do in the next set once Mel comes out and we have an actually good
well,
three stop green. But just and it's not even for a green card is the worst part. It's 100% for Caillou Kasumi.
Tomy.
Yeah, Kome.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's not even a green card. It's just green adjacent.
I just got to look at a deck list that was on Twitter for the recent like event, I guess in Japan, and somebody was running like the weirdest kind of with green assist with Tama running like 2 Kome. With like bang and the level 2 bang that says like the center can't attack until next turn, but it's like main phase.
Yeah.
And then they run Suck You with Exia to just basically negate an entire turn of attacks. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. I had some viewers on my end poking me in that direction, and like I'm interested in it. I'm tentative, but interested. You know, like it's always like when new tech is given to me, I'm always looking at it, and I think, all right, well, I'm just a guy who wants consistency. So I look at it and I go like, well, I'd rather just run Bang to Capo because I know that'll consistently stop things. I won't need to draw it in a certain order. But
Right.
but that doesn't mean that like shutting down an entire field of attacks for literally one enter. Or I guess
pretty
2
good.
with Succubi because she trashes herself. But like it's pretty good. It's a pretty good choice. Yeah.
There's definitely some like different play styles you'd have to think about going in, like when to use it, but it's definitely funny, you know? And I'm actually more, at least with Wixoss, I'm trying to be a little bit more casual. I do enjoy playing and winning, but I've had my very sweaty phase with Magic and some other card games that I've played. And you mentioned, old school players. I didn't actually know that, there's a bunch of Discords here. I didn't even have a Discord till like a year ago when they announced it was during COVID to actually play Magic. But I didn't know that the card games forum or Discord that a bunch of the people who have been playing All Star and Wixoss online for forever.
Yeah.
I actually had joined that and I didn't know how to access because I didn't know anything about Discord at the time. And I was like, well, no one's here, right? And it turned out that they had been like following my tweets and everything for a while because obviously I'm just posting a crap ton of Tama merch all the time. And I was like, oh, people actually play? Because for a while there was Wixoss, I can't remember the name of it, but there was like an online client that pretty much automated most of the process. And I think it shut down like maybe a year ago. Maybe it's still up. I know it hadn't been updated for a long time. And it was mostly Japanese players and like some Korean players and whatnot. And it was mostly automated, but it had the cards in English so you could play. However, I didn't know enough about the game at the time that I would go on, and then like a lot of people were using it to clearly practice for their locals in Japan and Southeast Asia, and I would just get my ass handed to me. So after like a couple, I don't know, 20 games, I was like, yeah, I don't think it's worth it for me to really invest in like learning this when I'm never actually going to be able to play in person. Because for me, card games are really a big like in-person thing. I really like sitting next to somebody, seeing them like play, talk to them, have fun like that. It's more like it's definitely a social aspect to it, you know?
Yeah, totally.
That I think I really missed during COVID. So this whole like online, like I was like, yeah, I'll just keep collecting because I was definitely a fan of the anime first, right? And I had all the cards because it was for Tama, and then it's like, oh, the English is getting released, and I was like, well, I guess I got to get good, right? So, um, but it is pretty funny. It's like I kind of know a little bit about like the old metas and some of the cards people were using, but only at a very surface level because I used to actually don't tell Takara Tomy on me, but I used to actually be one of the people scanning the magazines and some of the art books and stuff for people because I just wanted people to enjoy the art because at the time it was actually very difficult to get some of these things.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of funny because I'm like, if they had made it a little bit easier, I wouldn't have had to do that. But I just wanted to spread it and hopefully somebody would see the art and maybe go and watch the anime and get involved. Um, but I don't know when they randomly announced it. It's been a year now, right?
Yeah, it's been a year and like a month basically.
Ooh, it was like, the wiki used to say, "Will this game ever come out in English?" No.
Yeah, but then it did, and it's great, and the art is particularly, especially in the old series, particularly good. I really did. I enjoy the new neon sort of bright look that they're going with here. But the old stuff that was more like ethereal was pretty cool. And Tama had a lot of Tama's. That's one of the reasons why the colored Tama forms like ended up being kind of just cool, right? And like at the end of the day, that's one of those things that I think we like when we look at these Tama forms, these Tama colors, is like it's just cool, like it's at the end of the day, it's just cool. Cards are
It's
cool.
definitely one of the games. Rule of Cool is definitely how they play it. I mean, they gave Pre-Luck a gun this set. I mean, why? She never uses a
Cool.
gun. Like, I think I joked before. I was like, yeah, she's really watch out. Remember, she's coming for you. If you've read Peeping Analysis, which I think I just sent you, but you should. Anyone who likes the Remember card likes Pre-Luck. Read Peeping Analysis and get a different perspective.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean the cool thing too is Remember's got like, and they all really have very cool character designs, right? But Remember's got like in my head a specifically pretty cool character design. And you look at her and you're like, oh, I wonder what her astrology stuff is all about, and blah blah. And then you're just like, oh, she's just the worst.
yeah,
She's
just
literally
you just
the
hit
worst.
you just get hit by a truck and you're like, man, oh man, like that was not what I was expecting this lyric to be about, but it's pretty funny, and I do like we're talking about Tama being white and it kind of separates from the colors of other games. Remember's personality is not white at all, and even her abilities to a certain extent don't really feel super white.
Yeah.
And especially in like I think the older one like freezed, so it's like sometimes with colors in Wecross you're like, I have this card called Cocelia, like a Phantom Water Queen or whatever it's called. And it's like it's based on a fish. It's got blue in it. It should be blue, right? And then it's a white card, So
I actually kind of appreciate the color bleed a little bit in this. I wish Magic did it a little bit, although I understand why they don't. Like I understand why they color pie so hard. But it does make it a little easier to just be like, okay, every color has access to removal, every color has access to damage negation. The way they do it is a little bit different, but like the fundamentals are there for the game, which I think helps Wecross be a more balanced game. It also helps that they're not putting out
definitely.
like as much product as Magic is now, so it's just like there's no way they can keep their game balanced because they're literally putting out thousands and thousands of cards every year now.
I can't talk about it. But it's the color pie aspect of it is like, again, Tama's in multiple colors, and I mean part of it is probably from a game point standpoint, like from Takara Tomy. People love these characters, they want to play with them, but maybe they don't want to completely power creep the colors. Like, well, we already made a Tama level 3 or 4 in white that's super good. What do we do? Because people want more Tama. You're not going to make an even better version, right? So you kind of have to like
Yeah, they
color
say
shift, maybe.
Yeah, someone says green needs some power. Let's put Tama in green. They throw him out the window.
Yes. So from what I understand too is like green is suffering from the sins of its past because I guess it used to be like too strong or something. It had like some crazy ability or deck, and I think like somebody's saying they scaled back heavily because of that pretty early on. Like, I don't know how true that is.
No,
It's just
I've heard rumors of the same thing where it was something like, oh yeah, you basically end the game and you have 10 life cloth, which is 3 more than you were supposed to start with. So,
Yeah, it's just punished for their sins. I was really hoping Midakori would end up being, getting a good center or something, because I liked her character with Hitoto, but like, maybe one day,
yeah, but
I do think. Oh, go ahead.
you
Sorry.
know what is cool about that idea that they're like, yeah, we need more Tama, and we need to so let's color swap it, let's color shift it. It does feel like and this is a little spoiler territory for anyone who's doesn't want to know what's happening in Japan right now. They just announced the next year's theme of Wixoss, and it's supposed to be Western Gothic, which just ends up, to any of us who are in the West, it's just clearly Halloween. Like, I think one of the funniest things
So
is
it's funnier than that because it's Japanese Western Gothic. Like, they basically mixed like the three biggest. I think it was that Japanese fans got to vote on the theme they wanted,
yes,
and they just mixed them together. So you have like the Halloween themed ryokan kind of thing, or onsen. It's like, it's pretty. I think it's pretty cool. It's like Japanese Innistrad.
I mean, yeah, no, and you're talking to me, man. So of course I'm hyped as hell for it. Like, I'm like just mad I gotta wait a year. But it's the key of like the plot, the reason why this is happening in the card game lore is because Tama misses Riku, right? Like, I think that's what it is, and it's so she ends up going sort of dark.
Yeah,
In
she
Wixoss.
tries summoning her or something, I
Yeah,
think is what they said. Like, she tried summoning Ruko and then like created a clone, so she got like upset because it wasn't actually her, and then turns dark and it creates like a complete opposite land or something something like that.
yeah, like the
Um,
Distona or land or whatever it's called. Um, for dissonance. Yeah, and so we have Black Tama as an Elrig coming out in a year from now in Japan.
yeah, it's actually her first level 0, like her first actual line, because previously it had just been her level 5. Which, so the original game played a little bit differently for those who don't know, where the enter, you weren't locked into enter based on your center rig. It was just basically if you could pay for it. So if you had the enter that was of that color, you could pay for it. Like, there's an Eldora list that played like all 5 colors, and she's a blue center. So introducing an actual level 0 Black Tama is super cool. It was a little untimely with the announcement, because I had just finished my commission with Lucky Yuki for the Tama, and they had done the alternative art of the Black Tama, and they actually asked me like, should I make it the level 0 or should I make it white or black? And I was like, well, just make it black. It's cool either way. Like, the people who care about using the proxies aren't going to care about the actual color, but they're like, oh, I'll make it white because I want people to feel comfortable using it. Like, literally, like the next day after they sent it off to get printed, that was announced that it was going to have a level 0 black one.
That's really good. Yeah. Well, man, let's start closing it off here. I think we covered all of Tama's color, and guys, like, I can't stress the anime is very, very interesting and very twisty in terms of how they deal with color, and I think that it has a lot to do also with like the fact that oh god, what's the Eternity, right? Like, or Eternal is her name. There we go, Eternal.
Mayu?
Yeah, Mayu
Or,
and
yeah.
Eternal and all that
Oh,
junk.
Mugen, yeah.
Mugen.
Mugen.
Yeah, so that's the colorless version of potential Elrigs. It's very cool. I actually I love the way they treat color in the anime. It's one of my favorite things they do in the first like sort of two sets of anime. So check it out, and also Tamanon, thanks for letting me come on your channel, man. This is really cool.
Yeah, it's I've been wanting to talk to you guys since we played in ceremony, so I really enjoyed it.
Since
This
we
is
played
awesome.
the ceremony, since you kicked my butt in the ceremony with Mono-White, is what you mean to say.
I luck sacked hard, and I felt so bad afterwards because I played like 3 more games after that. I didn't see a single Lifeburst, and then dropped, and then like you told me, you're like, oh, I was seeing you post that you only had like 1 more game or there's something you're trying to really top. And I was like, damn, I should have just dropped out beforehand. If I had known, I would have just like not luck sacked at all.
No, man, it was good. I'm happy with it, and it actually proved a point to me too. I was telling people they needed to prep for Mono-White, and everyone was basically being like, it's an RNG deck, I don't think I need to prep against it. And I was like, it's a good deck when it hits, when it hits.
Look, it might be RNG, but some players like Skewer, who plays sometimes at like our locals, if you're a good player, you can circumnavigate that RNG and still win with it.
And I don't even think you need to circumnavigate the RNG anymore. Like, so Tama's mid-range list that we talked about
not anymore. No,
just prior to this, right, is good. It will be better in set 7. The mono-white list right now in Tama, super roaring and ready to go. You're gonna see a ton of it in this meta.
I've only played like maybe 6 games of it, and even when I mess up, it feels just so strong. Like it feels so good. I'm like, this is the kind of mid-range, like I guess as control-y as I can get with Wixoss that I feel good about playing. It definitely matches my playstyle a hell of a lot more than the mono-white RNG white weenie rush kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny is you can still do the white weenie rush. You just now are backed with like a ton of solid late game options.
Yeah, you don't just die fold at the end, you know?
Yeah, 100%. All right, Tama, I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you for letting me hang out on your channel.
Of course, and you know, what is it that you guys always say?
The Lifeburst thing. Don't.
Yeah.
If you guys always flip that Lifeburst.
Yeah, perfect. Now I got that on my channel, copywritten, no takebacks.
Shit! I gotta think of something new now.